Welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Scott Knudsen, here with two friends of mine in beautiful Central Texas, George Courtney and Chris Timmons, and they are with Deer Breeders Corporation. You can look them up at dbcdeer.com to see everything they do in the wildlife world. Thank y'all for being on the show.
Thank you, Brad.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Deer Breeders Corporation. Chris, tell me about it.
Deer Breeders Corporation is a nationwide organization for deer breeders and high-fence ranches, people that want to improve the genetics on your ranch. We have all types of programs, learning programs, educational programs for people to learn how to improve genetics, how to manage their deer. We give a lot of scholarship money. We give. We actually had a research facility at Texas Tech at one time for deer. And we have a fun time. We have 2 events every year, and everybody has a great time just getting together and learning.
Right. So anybody can be a member.
Absolutely.
So that's cool. So everybody can be a member of it. And I love it because it's a generational deal. Just being in wildlife and being with deer, it's so special to be with my daughter. But the scholarships, over $250,000. That's a lot.
We've given over $250,000 in scholarships to high school kids. And, like our events, they're all family-oriented events, a lot of fun, a lot of games, usually at a resort where you can bring your family, swim, and have fun.
That's awesome. And Deer Breeders Corporation, also talk about the FFA. How much y'all helped them, because they don't have to have a big ranch to be a part of this. They can have 4 or 5 acres and really hit the numbers they need to be a Lone Star farmer in Texas. That's the highest rank.
Absolutely. George?
Yeah, I think for most of us that are deer breeders and ranchers that, we try to hire kids that are coming up in that field and want to express themselves and stay to the outdoors. And myself, we've hired quite a few kids in 4-H and FFA to come and work on the ranch and be interns or, help feed deer, help bottle feed, and just kind of run the operation.
Learn wildlife.
Absolutely.
I love that so much. And as a rancher, you're always looking to diversify your income. That's the first thing they teach you. And as being an entrepreneur, we're all 3 entrepreneurs. And deer breeding is a great way to do that.
Absolutely. And it's all about rural Texas. Who doesn't want to live in rural Texas?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you were saying earlier is the 5 acres. It doesn't have to be in the farthest west part of Texas. It could be closer to a town and still be successful.
It can be anywhere.
Because FFA is growing a lot in the metropolitan areas because of this. And this has a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yes. I love that. Let's talk about how deer breeding started and the genetic for it.
Deer breeding started, was permitted and created by Texas Parks and Wildlife over 30 years ago. And so the deer in our breeding pens originated from native deer. And the reason they have a trophy status now is from selective breeding. Mm-hmm. Selective breeding and nutrition. It's not any different than breeding superior cattle or sheep, horses, goats, and horses.
Yeah.
It's all done the same way.
Yeah. Better genetics just mean better whatever's coming from the
genetics are the number one component to having superior animals.
So Texas Parks and Wildlife helped create this, which I'm so glad for, because really they're doing a great job. And I'm so glad they did this. Let's just give them their props, because without them, the deer wouldn't be getting better. So I would think that they would be helping support this as well and helping support these kids. So as the genetics get better, deer get better.
Correct.
And then as far as a rancher, you're able to, and a deer, somebody in the industry, it helps not only financial, but it helps with nature. And who owns the deer?
Actually, the people of the state own the deer. We do not own our deer in the pens. We just own a permit and are allowed to breed those deer, right, and transfer them here and there.
So when you say the people, it's the actual citizens of the state of Texas.
Correct.
Then
they are a public resource.
Love that. And I think a lot of people don't know that, and what y'all do is just help manage them and get better genetics. Isn't that correct? I mean, that's great.
That's exactly what we do. And through these genetics, there's so many key elements to breeding for disease resistance, longevity, production, not only trophy animals. It's just a superior animal across the board. And that's what you're doing in cattle, sheep, goats, horses, whatever you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I know with horses, as the genetics get better, we're able to use them for a lot more things, and they hold up so much better. They get hurt less, and they live a lot longer.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about Deer Breeders Corporation. So how did this start? How did the corporation start? Do you want to answer that?
Well, the DBC started, a group of breeders got together and started this organization a little bit more family oriented and tried to tie it into the family atmosphere. And that way there was more sales or auctions and people could sell their product, our animals, help the ranches, improve the genetics on these ranches. And it's just legislative wise, it was better to have numerous organizations within the state because of some of the battles we do go through.
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, because y'all are the expert. So the deer raised in Texas is not transferred out to another state. Is that correct? So the citizens own our deer, the deer stay here?
They can be transferred out of the state, but they cannot be transferred from another state into our state.
Got it. Okay.
So
the genetics stay high.
That's right.
Okay.
So no deer from another state can cross that state line to come in without breaking the law.
Well, that's good. So it keeps our genetic level up. So does high fence genetic deer stay in high fence, or does it go to low fence, or does it stay at where you can regulate it closer?
So deer breeders, the deer in our pens, in our facilities, there's a big misconception with the word release that is in the rules, Texas Parks and Wildlife rules. We are allowed to release our deer, but the word release is misconstrued, I guess I could say, because we can never release our deer into the wild. Our deer are transferred into a high-fenced ranch.
And that's where they end. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, and that's to improve the genetics. People have hunting operations. Their kids, their grandkids are raised on that ranch, generational, and continue that in the future. But yeah, the word release, like Chris is saying, is we don't release deer in the wild. So people think that captive deer breeders release to native deer populations. That's inaccurate, and it's not right. They're to a release site, a hunting ranch, high fence ranch, or just an enjoyable high fence ranch.
So basically, it's just a larger management program.
Exactly. Yeah.
The deer in our pens, we have them in a breeding facility where we can breed what we want. We release or transfer those deer into a high-fenced range, and that continues on for that landowner. And it is the most efficient and effective way to grow trophy deer and superior deer.
Yeah, it's a generational gift for sure. Absolutely. Whether it's a smaller ranch or a large ranch, and these aren't just multimillionaires. These are family ranches where they might have a spot for a few animals for, their grandkids.
Well, as land fragments, which has been happening in the last 20 years, it doesn't take much land to have something enjoyable and have trophy deer on it.
Right. Just have the family out.
That's right.
Yeah. Kind of like with the Longhorn, people have them out.
That's right.
Not necessarily just for meat, but just to look at because they're enjoyable for the grandkids, Kind of the state look, having a Longhorn and a beautiful white-tailed deer, there's nothing better than that.
That's right.
So does hunting laws apply to the managed deer as much as the domesticated to the wildlife?
That is also a misconception for the general public. Once those deer are transferred into a high-fenced range, there are all general regulations for hunting apply. There are no special seasons, no special treatment or laws for that high fence range. So you hunt during the season just like you do outside the high fence range.
So the only difference is better genetics,
Correct. Better genetics.
healthier deer, and
That's right.
it's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And from entrepreneur side, you always want the best you can have to be putting back in your business. And as a rancher, you want the best product. You want the best cow, the best horse, and of course, the best deer.
Well, another thing is it carries on for generations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're building a ranch for your children or your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, you can secure superior genetics in those deer for generations to come.
And that's what we want to do as Texans. We want to leave it for the next generation and so on. So with deer that is managed like what y'all have, and so many people across the nation have, and in Texas for sure, you feed better, you breed better, and you vaccinate better, and you just take care of them, you know, because that's your livelihood, you know, and you want to put out your names on it. You want to put out the best animal, you know, just like a horse guy like me. But CWD, I know y'all test for that as well, and nothing leaves y'all's ranch somewhere else unless it's tested. Would you explain what that is?
So CWD, or chronic wasting disease, our deer are required by law to be tested. Every deer that dies within our facility must be tested for CWD. But also, every deer that we transfer to a high fence location or a release site must be tested 100%, live tested through a rectal biopsy, and be proven free of CWD before they are even moved. So they're the safest deer out there because CWD is in the wild across the United States.
Mm-hmm. So this is definitely the most effective way to control your herds if you have a high fence. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the testing part, I mean, 100%, that's strong. And if you're getting something for your ranch, you want to make sure it's 100% sound and tested. So that's a great thing that you do that, for sure. So it's never been documented, has it? CWD as far as the death or anything like that?
So CWD has never been documented to be a sole cause of death of any deer. If a deer can have CWD for years, still reproduce, still carry on, but CWD is a brain disease. It's the same as mad cow or scrapie in sheep. In humans, it's CJD. And it is a misfolding of prions in the brain. But it doesn't cause a death.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having similar to Alzheimer's.
But it's manageable. And as you get better genetics with 100% testing, you're just going to go around that, right?
Well, the neat thing is the genes have been sequenced, and they found the genome that is resistant or susceptible to CWD, and breeders are breeding for that. We're testing our deer. We're testing our deer and breeding for resistance to CWD, and actually, and it's working. So if we can take those deer that are genetically selected for resistance to CWD, they can carry on generation after generation because it has been proven that it passes on to their offspring, and released into high fenced ranches, we can eventually solve CWD problem.
I love it. I love that. I love how Deer Breeders Corporation's ahead of that with technology and education and working on the problem with a solution.
Well, they did the same thing in scrapie. Scrapie in sheep was eradicated over the United States. It took a long time, but our technology is better now and should be much faster.
And that was 60 years ago. and there's still so many sheep and goat guys. So that just tells me the future is bright for what y'all are doing, because better technology, better education, and we've already seen the track record that works.
And better research.
Absolutely, absolutely, and with the entrepreneurs behind it too. That's what an entrepreneur is a problem solver. You just fix a problem and still put out a great product.
Sure.
I love that so much. So has it ever decreased a native population?
Actually, it's been proven to populations that were high in prevalence to increase population.
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of that is because hunters stopped hunting that area, but it has never dropped or devastated a population. CWD is not across the United States, and I think there's 33 states or something like that have CWD, and there's a lot of states out there that have a high prevalence of CWD in their native herds and never had deer breeders, don't have deer breeders, and probably wish they did and could maybe solve this problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I couldn't wait to do the show and for our audience to get to see it as well, because the education part is so important. But taking care of our animals is even more important.
Absolutely.
You know, and I grew up looking for whitetail, you know, and some of my favorite memories with my dad and grandparents was doing this, you know, and now my daughter. So it's important. And y'all being ahead of this is so great. And I think, you know, y'all test 100%, but I think at low fence and native, it's only 1% testing. Is that correct?
The state right now is testing less than 1%
Less
of the native deer out there. There's like 6 million deer in the native population. And so the state is testing at a rate of less than 1%. Deer breeders are testing 100%. And at that rate, when you compare those two rates, they're still finding CWD in the wild. Actually, a third, they have found as many as a third of the deer in the wild that we found in the pens, and which tells you that the prevalence is way higher in the wild. So out of all of the cases, there have been, I think, 14 cases, original cases of CWD in deer breeder pens in Texas. There's been, I think, 8 original cases found in the wild in native deer. And out of all of those original cases, they have never found a source. So they don't know where it's coming from. They don't know if it's coming from scavengers, if it's coming from spontaneous, if it's, it can be spread many different ways. It's been found in plants. It can be in hay. So the spread is inevitable. So we need to get control. And the only way to control that is by breeding resistance, in my opinion.
Right. Just better genetics, tracking it, and we're culling the herd where you have to, as far as just making sure that you're testing 100% so it doesn't get in. But also, the breeders, Texas breeders and national, over $13 million is spent trying to do research.
We have spent
Just on testing.
We've spent over $13 million in the last 2 years, deer breeders
2
alone,
years. Wow.
in 2 years, testing 55,000 deer.
Those are huge numbers.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's so great, once again, to see y'all taking the initiative to keep our deer protected.
Well, there's nothing more valuable on a ranch setting or on a high-fenced ranch than whitetail deer.
Mm-hmm.
It not only is part of nature, but it raises the value of the property.
Absolutely. Plus, it just, when you work your whole life to buy your ranch, or when you do get your ranch, just sit on that porch and look out there, drink a cup of coffee, and watch the deer.
Oh, nothing's pretty.
There's nothing prettier.
Unless it's a quail whistle.
That's pretty good too.
Yeah.
That's pretty good too. And also, as entrepreneurs, we know how important it is for other entrepreneurs, with the hunting industry and the wildlife industry. It leads to so many other industries within that town, around that ranch, from the restaurants to the gas stations to the feed stores.
Grocery stores, every convenience stores. I mean, local kid, FFA, 4-H, coming to work at the ranch, you know, to help out. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge economic impact.
Big time. And educational impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that excites me though, that there is so many. So what entrepreneurs attached to our industry, y'all's industry, but ours too. I mean, we love being in the wild, but like the restaurant people, they don't realize that what y'all are doing is helping their restaurant stay in business. And what Deer Breeders Corporation is doing is keeping, you know, the gas station in business in a small town. And that's why you're spending so much money, $13 million in 2 years, to help them as well.
That's right. And it's not only that, it's, you know, the economic impact. If deer breeders are regulated out of business, not only are the genetics lost for resistance to CWD, but the economic impact that it will make on the state of Texas, out-of-state hunters, just like you said, feed stores, it trickles down and is a domino effect across rural Texas. And, you know, that is one of our main goals, is to protect rural Texas.
Mm-hmm. And well, it gives the opportunity to our state legislation and Parks and Wildlife to actually lead this deal and work with y'all and with everybody across the country to help Texas lead the country like it should in everything. So as Texas legislation and Parks and Wildlife work with y'all, we get better deer, healthier deer, and other states can copy what we do and help their states, as opposed to the other way around. Texas, I always see as a leader with Texas wildlife. That's why I was excited about doing our show today is you know, we laugh and we'll talk and, you know, drinking around the table, talking about deer and nothing better. But, you know, what y'all are doing, it's hard work, you know, and it's financially, but we're setting the table for the next generation and on. And I love that. And as an entrepreneur, I do, but also as a ranch guy, I do for sure. Let's talk a little bit more about CWD. Can that be transferred through a dead carcass?
Oh, absolutely. So the fluids from deer, the brain tissue, the spinal fluids, are all in carcasses. That's the part that you throw away,
right,
basically. So on an annual basis, there are 800,000 deer harvested in the state of Texas, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Except those carcasses are hauled all over the state. There's no restriction on what you have to do or where you can put them. They're in bar ditches, they're in backyards, they're in pastures. And then those scavengers pick them up, spread them all over the state. So without a carcass movement restriction, the spread's inevitable.
Absolutely.
As well as plant life
Coming up.
collecting that and bringing it from the soil or those carcasses, that folded prions, what it is, will be in the plant life, and animals eat that. And of course, they urinate, have feces, and I mean, it's just a return cycle.
It's so about doing what y'all do with 100% testing and such, that helps stop that or slows it down.
All right. Well, if we're testing 100% before those deer are even moved, they're proven not to have CWD before we move them.
So,
Plus breeding the genetics into that with resistance to CWD.
So have the solution before the problem.
That's exactly right. This is actually, as of today, the only solution that's being worked on, and it's us breeders doing it.
It's entrepreneurs fixing a problem, the definition of an entrepreneur. And the sheep and goat did it 60 years ago.
That's right.
So we've just learned what they did. We're just doing a little bit quicker.
And they did it with Scrapie, and Scrapie is the same as CWD. Matter of fact, there's only one test, it's called the Western blot, that they can even distinguish Scrapie from CWD.
Wow.
And a lot of those tests are inconclusive. So they don't hardly ever even use that test anymore, but because it has the same effect. And it really doesn't matter whether it's Scrapie or if it's CWD. We need to solve it. And the best way is through genetic resistance.
Mm-hmm. And I feel it will with Deer Breeders Corporation and just people just managing their herds.
Well, it will be if as long as we're not regulated out of business.
Oh yeah, regulation to a stranglehold is the worst thing. But when they're helping, that's a blessing because it's all of our deer.
Well, we're more concerned because it's our livelihood.
Absolutely.
And so we don't want to lose our livelihood.
Right. And it's important for the FFA, youngster that's coming up that might want to do this for a career.
Future generation.
Yeah, this is not only just to get out and go hunt, but it's also to watch and enjoy, but it's also jobs.
Right.
And then the economic impact we just discussed is huge. So it's our duty as Texans to kind of take care of the Texas whitetail.
That's right.
And doing 100% as opposed to less than 1%.
Whitetail deer are a public resource in the state. That's their goal, is to protect and preserve the public resource. And you would think that they would be more inclined to help the deer breeders build this genetic resistance. As far as we know right now, that's the only way we have to solve CWD.
Well, the people of Texas own the deer. So the legislation and Texas Parks and Wildlife, they all get behind y'all entrepreneurs. We can fix it.
That's right.
And it won't be fixed without the testing and without the Deer Breeder Corporation and other people like y'all helping and leading that.
Right. So my point was if deer breeders are regulated out of business, and there's been, we probably have half the number of deer breeders in the state of Texas that we had 2 years ago because of regulations. And so if we are regulated out of business, are we really protected? If resistance, genetic resistance is the only way out and they do away with breeder deer, are we really protecting our natural resource?
No.
No.
Well, it's not
it's just
protecting
a way to look
Texans
at it.
and business people and the natural resource of the deer. It just hurts a lot of different people by not doing what y'all are doing. And the investment of $13 million in 2 years, that's a big number.
Well, it's definitely not protecting the public resource that Chris is talking about,
Right.
the whitetail deer,
Right.
in the state. So if this regulation continues as far as breeders falling out and this industry, it gets strapped, there's no cure. We know there's CWD in the wild. We know it. 100% prevalence testing for us and less than 0.5% what the state's doing on free range deer. And when I say free range, I mean deer on low fence, running wild.
Right.
If that's the only possibility for us to find it out and find a cure for this public resource, the whitetail deer, then I don't know what we're doing.
Right. And really, y'all haven't asked government for money. Y'all are coming up with, you're doing fundraising. There's so much coming in from the business side. Y'all are solving the problem, but it's going to be genetics. It's going to be the testing, everything y'all are doing, and it's working.
Right.
And we saw it work 60 years ago with sheep and goats. Y'all are just doing it at a higher level. So it's going to happen faster. But left without Deer Breeders Corporation and others working with you, it's going to go to less than 0.5% of testing, and the deer quality and population might be affected.
Well, and so, in my opinion, I think if we had a mandatory testing for hunter harvest deer across the state, that would give us an assessment and know what the prevalence is in the wild and know what we have to deal with. I think if we actually knew the prevalence of the deer in the wild, it would scare everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And all we're asking is that that the public allow us and help us do what we do best, breed our deer, breed resistant in, and let's solve this problem.
I love that. That's just fix the problem. So how do people get involved? Say if somebody's watching this and they own a restaurant in a rural town or a town where there's deer hunting around there, or how do they get involved with Deer Breeders Corporation, or where do they need to go?
Well, there's Deer Breeders Corporation. They can call or email the office, look at our website, come to our convention, come to our events. We have 2 a year, one in August. They're both in San Antonio, which is the heart of deer country.
Sure.
and there's a lot of educational programs that go on there and fill you in. Come have fun with us. You know, it's not hard to get involved. There's a lot of people out there that are breeding deer. We actually have a map on our website that shows a map of every deer breeder in the state. And so when you're driving down the road, you can pull that map up and it'll take you to those places. You can stop and visit with the people. Everybody is friendly as can be.
I love how transparent this industry is and how welcoming. You know, that says a lot for sure. And I encourage, you know, the legislators get behind y'all and help. You got a solution. They can just tie on and go with you, you know, and fix this deal, right? Fix the Texas whitetail.
Right. We're all about fixing the problem. That's why we're here.
I love that. So George, any final comments?
No, not really. We appreciate your time and
Absolutely.
coming and doing this.
Absolutely.
I think for Chris and I that this is an issue, a problem that, you know, that we are trying. I don't think the public understands that enough, that we are the only ones trying. We can prove that. The 14 million in 2 years, it's a strong number cost, and the ranchers, you know, I mean, my whole point is I want to be able to do something to hand down to one of my kids or my grandkids if they want to do this. So as an entrepreneur, I mean, that's what life's about. Yeah. I mean, it's family and God and friends.
That's it. You know, and that's absolutely. And future generations enjoy what y'all have created in the deer. Because we have a low fence at our ranches, and we've seen the deer decline, or they go up, they decline depending on what's going on. Here it's controlled, and you're getting the best of the best, and I love that.
Well, you know, the most important component of breeding anything is genetics, and it's so important to that high fence landowner. If he wants to carry these animals on for generations, it's the only way to do it. It's the most effective way and most efficient way.
And Chris, I love how y'all are bringing the youth into this with FFA and the scholarship. Absolutely. That's the future. That's why we do all this. It's a generational, like we said earlier, generational gift for future Texans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank y'all both for what you're doing for Texas Whitetail, and thank y'all for watching the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show.